The discussions will be comprehensive and ambitious, covering climate justice and the shared future of humanity, sustainable cities and resilient communities, building an inclusive future with children, youth, freedom, disabled people and senior citizens, intergenerational equity, bridging science and technology to strengthen mountain resilience, sustaining our mountain economies with innovation and care. But Nepal cannot face this alone. We call for global and regional partnerships. Pricing of the ecosystem services we protect and fair payment mechanisms for their conservation, water, food and health security must be the foundation of a climate resilient future of our mountains. We need more climate finance to respond to the climate disasters. We envision cities and communities that are green, resilient and inclusive. We strive for the prosperity, well-being of our people and the health of our planet. Let's do it together. Let's do it with urgency, solidarity and innovation. The fate of humanity depends on the choices we make now for our glaciers, our mountains and generations to come.
We have one more short video before we start our discussion, which actually gives us a glimpse of all the sessions, and this is from an indigenous leader giving some illustrations. So can we have that video also, please? Thank you very much. So with the video and this overview, if you missed some of the sessions or thematic areas, you get a sense of the kind of issues that are being covered at Sagarmatha Sambaad, which is extremely important for us to look at the challenges as well as solutions. And hearing Honorable Prime Minister Oli, I must mention, last year I had the honor of meeting him as part of a small delegation. We were supposed to meet for about half an hour, and the discussion went on for more than 75 minutes, and I was deeply impressed with the way he was explaining about the geography and environmental challenges in the region and what needs to happen on climate change. So a lot of it was coming from his deep understanding, and this particular Samvad is a testament to his commitment and understanding of climate change and how important the issue is. Okay, so now is the time to invite Dr. Koirala to give a keynote address, and he has a few slides. So over to you, Dr. Koirala.
Thank you, Harjit. Such a nice introduction. And thanks to the government of Nepal for organizing such an important international meeting. And I'm really proud and honored to be here in this particular meeting. Now, you heard my background. I'm a clinician. I still work in a very busy practice setup. But the reason I'm here today is I spent my third of my life trying to learn the tricks and trade of medicine and surgery, and then cardiac surgery. And second, third would have been trying to work on how do we really make that technology available and accessible to the people of Nepal. And briefly, Harjit touched upon, we try to do that at a certain scale. As I grew a little maybe mature, I don't want to say I grew older, but started realizing that fixing one patient at a time is great. You feel good, and that's very important. But you also have to look at the determinants of health as we learn in our community and public health science. And I had to learn to run hospitals, work through the systems. So then I started learning the little bit of science of public health, and that's how I got into thinking through how do we really start changing the systems. And one of the determinants of health in the current era, particularly for Nepal, is the climate change. Of course, there are a lot of other things associated with it, and I'm not an environmental scientist in that sense, but a lot of common sense things come into play, and we see how this particular issue is completely changing the landscape of non-communicable diseases in the country. I'm going to show you some of the numbers that I think you're all aware, but I think it's worth repeating here. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more from the health perspective on this particular topic. And because health and education are two most important things that we always strive to get right in the national context. Probably would not be wrong to say that climate change and NCDs, non-communicable diseases, are two major global crises of our time. Because from health perspective, I'm going to show you Nepal, the biggest cause of death, you may not be fully aware that 3/4 of all deaths in Nepal, and in many other LMICs, low-income countries, are from non-communicable diseases. If you add the injuries, which again relate to a lot of these climate changes and the catastrophes that we see now and then, it becomes 78% of all deaths happen due to these conditions. That's massive. So we're going to have to do something about the bigger perspective that leads to this massive amount of deaths. And if you really put it down, 3 major disease conditions cause deaths in cardiovascular, respiratory, and cancers. So I think there's a lot to talk about. How do we really work at the bigger system level to minimize the consequence of this? And by the way, 54 to 58%, this data changes depending upon who you quote, of the cost of these treatments go out of pocket at the point of care delivery. So I think here is impact of climate change on health, but also I, as somebody who's working on trying to work through the system, learning the health system delivery, we also have to think through the impact of health activities on the climate change, on the pollution and the impact on the environment. Just to be brief, I don't want to be too scientific here. I think what I'm going to say now on would be something that our youth would pick up on those topics and try to build on that, think through, and maybe interact with the health community on trying to find newer ways of tackling those issues through the innovation and research in future. Just to summarize, though, the climate change, starting from the change in the quality of air, increasing the pollution, which, sometimes I come out on the street at times, just asking the government, let me have a clean air to breathe, government, something like that. But this is something overarching, and that changes a lot of things. And pollution is one of the biggest causes of cardiovascular disease now, and it's one of the 5 risk factors that WHO defines as a cause of cardiovascular disease. Same thing happens with agricultural pattern changes, food supply. We already have malnutrition, and then that gets worse by these types of changes in the environment, these landslides, the floods. The rise in temperature, somebody was talking today that there are now centers for dealing with high temperature insults, and there are a lot of issues in our migrant workers of the damages that high temperatures during working hours do cause, particularly the renal problems and the cardiovascular assault. There's a big issue in itself. And some other issues that in totality will increase the risk of non-communicable disease. And obviously floods, water pollution would also increase some of the diarrheal diseases and other things. And all of that will cause increased mental health issues, stresses, anxiety, depression, and a lot of that. And this will also reduce the chances of children and adolescents getting right learning opportunities at villages and even in the cities at this time. So it's overarching. Even from the health perspective, this topic is very important. Now, there are, I think Harjit put it aptly in the beginning introductory remarks that 1.2, 1.5 billion children aged between 15 and 24, and 20% of Nepal's population between 16 and 25 years, and 40% between 16 to 40. This youth is increasing in number. Unfortunately, many of them are going out for jobs because of a number of reasons, but this is a huge resource that Nepal can bank on. We also have problem of poverty, as I said before. 1/4 actually lives below the poverty line. We have massive geographic, educational, and economic challenges, as I briefly touched upon. So between all of this, we have to work trying to fix our own basic healthcare system, as well as try and prevent the massive devastating impacts of the climate change. We do have a lot of rules developing as we speak now, including on the climate change, as you guys know better than I know. But the UNICEF did a survey on what was the knowledge about those rules and regulations in some of the study that they carried out. And looks like our youngsters, not many people over 40 years of age, but youngsters probably are aware, at least a little worried about the climate change. They're aware that there are laws, and 96% tell that they are keen to address climate change. This is a good sign in the young population. They are educated now better than ever before. Well, there was a nice study done by this group. I think British Council sponsored this, and just to see that the knowledge of climate change policies and its acts is quite prevalent, and they also tell that the sources of information is mostly social media rather than structured national advocacy platforms. Well, I guess there are a few things that I want to share with the young colleagues that you guys are going to have to take it further, elaborate on it, develop the ways to deal with it, trying to create the platforms for sharing those things. Would be different ways of promotions of, green belts. And by the way, Nepal actually has done very good job in increasing the size of the green areas over the last 20, 25 years, increased the forest area covers now more than 40%, if I'm not wrong, starting from 20-25% 20, 25 years ago. So I think we've done a good job in forest side, but there are a lot of other issues that are yet to be done. Increasing awareness among the population, your neighbors, your family members itself. We do talk a lot, but following that in real life becomes a challenge. So I think using new technologies, including social media, formal education, and interestingly, energy efficiency is something that Nepal has done well in last 5 years or so. I'm going to probably show you a few numbers. I don't need to really be authentic on that. But we have a long way to go on the renewable energy, although we started talking about it. Now, there would be a lot of new technologies that we could use in the area of early warning of these disasters, including use of AIs, use of drones, use of telemedicine services. We've been talking about telemedicine to provide care in the remote sites since last 20 years or so, but somehow hasn't really gone that well. I think there is a lot to do on this side. And by the way, these EVs have taken over like 75% of the sale last year in Nepal, as opposed to the fossil fuel. It's great news, but we have too much of traffic congestions, and I think the motor vehicle accidents is an issue here. So I would like to see that our youth, you guys, learn to lead this agenda, and increase the climate literacy among yourself, your colleagues, families. And by the way, you guys are the best advocates, best teachers of your family. Advocacy and influence on climate policies. I think a lot of things would come up with this great panel. How do we really do that? Bring on board the youth. And, you guys need to learn how do we really develop projects based on those concepts. And also have some business skills. You need resources to be able to do that. You can't just keep asking money to do the work. So I think I would say, in short, that we need to engage youth in fighting climate crisis through probably incorporating this topic and agenda in our schools and university education. And the way health education is important right from the beginning, I think including this topic would be equally important. Mandatory participation of young population in national, international meetings and probably in the policy development forums would be something that I would strongly advocate for. And I think we need to find more evidence which will provide us in power to do decision making. I think this is where we lack. Nepal doesn't do much of research on itself, and neither does it have a lot of resources to do that. But unless we have numbers, we can't really advocate for what we want to really do. And digital technology now is really gone beyond. By the way, when we talk about advancement in science, we always think, oh, Nepal is not yet ready to use advanced science. I think it's the opposite. Nepal is the best place suited for use of those advanced technologies if we really do it right. So, again, we also need to look at the effects of healthcare system on the climate, on the air pollution and global warming, which is just the beginning of the discussions in Nepal, probably in most of these low-income countries now. But I'm happy to say that some of the projects that we're now trying to do, we're really trying to focus on how not to damage the health of others by trying to provide care. I think there's a lot Nepal and other countries can do on this. And also Nepal is a unique place, as you are being part of this whole process. And I think Nepal can be a place where a lot of things can be developed so that the global community can see and learn from particularly the high altitude science. Well, I hesitate to say that we could lead research in mountain medicines, but definitely we can be a major part of this research in mountain medicine. And there are some initiatives already going on. And just to tell you, by the way, how about, say, thousands of trekkers in Everest, Kanchenjunga, and all these 8 highest peaks of Nepal, hundreds of deaths up in the mountains. And now we're part of the discussion, not yet launched. How do we really save those lives? High stake, great people, advocates for Nepal, advocate for mountain. They just die just because they are not being rescued in time right at the high altitude. And this is something that high tech can enable us to save many of those, probably dozens, if not hundreds. That would give another confidence for more trekkers to come in and see those. And we could also lead the world in doing research in mountain medicine at the highest altitudes of the world. And there are a lot of other places we have high altitudes. But I think this would be something that, and we've done some research. My colleague has done the effect of heart function, effect of altitude on heart function, the heart rates and blood pressures at Everest level. So these are the things that we could always look at doing leading research in Nepal. So I think to cut the long story short, I think we, as a community, we have to realign our priorities, particularly in Nepal and countries like this. We have to come up with a common national agenda. Climate change is one of those. Obviously, we have other major issues like access to quality health and education, to be able to breathe a clean air, and of course, bad governance is a plague of the current times, and I would wish that we could see better governance in coming days. I would stop here, and if there are any questions, I'll take it.
Excellent. A big round of applause for Dr. Koirala. And I must say, thank you so much for all the work that you do and for your insights. And I would dare say that doctors and medical professionals are the most trusted in the society. So what you say, what you do really matters. and deep respect and appreciation for the work you do, wearing your white coat in the operation theaters and taking the issue to the streets.
Thank you.
Because people listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So building on all those insights, I'm going to go to Romset, because what we heard today, the kind of impacts we are seeing, it's a human rights issue. Let's talk about that a bit more. So Romset, you work with United Nations human rights body. So from a human rights perspective, how does climate change disproportionately affects the fundamental rights of young people in particular in vulnerable regions like the Himalayas? And why is their participation in climate action, including through science, technology, and innovation, is a rights imperative? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Hasid, and namaste, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Nepal government for inviting me to be part of this important discussion. And actually, my recent visit to Nepal, it was just last year in September during the flooding and landslide. And so I see and witness the incident with my own eyes, where the infrastructure are disrupted. I stuck at the airport for a day, and then I visit the Pokhara and visit the Kulung village and see what is the situation on the ground and how especially the young people from the communities engaged and preserve their communities. So I firmly believe that unlocking the potential of youth is not just the beneficial, but also the essential for the just and sustainable future. So as Hazid already mentioned, I work with the Human Rights Office, the United Nations Human Rights. So I look at the issue, the impact of climate change from human rights lens. So everything that we just saw from the video or from the keynote speech of Dr. Bangwant is I looked into this issue from the human rights lens, including the international human rights obligations. So the imminent issue that the young people, and I cannot talk about young people without talking about children, has been disproportionately impacted by the climate change is the death, which is the human rights to life and human rights to health. The extreme weather event, especially in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, the climate-related disasters like glacier melt, food insecurity, water scarcity, extreme weather event threaten the survival of children and youth because of their physical conditions. And we see a lot of research or even the study about the preterm birth, premature death, malnutrition, and also the long-term development of youth. So these all impact the life and well-being of young people and children. And I see a lot of people from the younger generation, and I would like to ask the question as well. Do you feel hopeful or depressed after 2 days of listening about climate change? Do you feel hopeful? Do you feel depressed? I'm glad to see that everyone still feels hopeful because it's not the physical impact, but also the mental health issue. That because of these extreme weather event or the insecurity or displacement, it creates a lot of anxiety and stress on young people, PTSD, depression, especially for young people or children who has experienced the loss of their family members due to extreme weather event. And another thing I would like to highlight that's really relevant to children and youth is the right to education. Because as we know that climate-related disaster has impacted the education facilities. And UNESCO has estimate that around the world, 175 million children are exposed to extreme weather events annually. And between 2008 to 2018, an average of 24 million children were forced out of school due to the extreme weather event. And also, it's linked to a long-term issue like the economic stability, because they forced out of the school. They might experience the youth unemployment, migration, or even lead to the child labor and migration. And also, one thing I really want to highlight is that that's why all of these challenges really imperative for their participation in the climate decision making, because we all heard this, nothing without us, about us without us. So many youth still face this issue, and I stop at the first draft here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramset, for really, a round of applause. Really unpacking some of those issues, and I'm sure we'll pick that up, and I'm going to request the audience to keep your questions ready, and we would like to hear from you and engage in a dialogue. And when we talk about human rights violations, and here we are at the Sagarmatha Sambaad discussing climate justice, it's a justice issue. So I'm going to come to Diksha to connect all those with the climate justice aspect and share what are the primary barriers young Nepalese are actually facing, as especially the marginalized communities in mountainous regions, in accessing science, technology, innovation to address some of these issues, and what are the opportunities that you see for them in terms of climate action, and how they can really play that role and to deliver climate justice. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Harjeet, and good evening, everyone. So it's an honor to speak at this platform, and I would really like to thank Government of Nepal for this opportunity. So talking about the climate justice, and when we talk about the people, young people from the mountain community, the situation there is really different. Few weeks ago, I was myself there at Thame Solukhumbu at the pre-event of Sagarmatha Sambaad, and I could see the first-hand impact of climate change. Last year only, there was a glacial lake outburst flood, and that impacted the whole mountain community. And when I went there, I could see it from the different lens. So I had a talk with small children and what was their perspective or what they have seen. So the situation there is that they fear for tomorrow. They have been deprived of education for a few days because the only school was swept away by the flood. And also the only health post was also swept away. So for the few days, they had to actually travel to a different place that was about 3 hours far, and now they are staying there. That means children, when we talk about the children or young people, even the basic right is deprived due to climate change. So connecting it to the climate justice and mountain people, they are doubly marginalized. That means they are economically marginalized and also by the climate change. That means we have to see it from the different lens. And when it comes to the science and technology and connecting it or trying to connect it to the solutions, first of all, in Nepal, when we look at our education system, that is like very basic, or that does not actually connect practically to the. So I have even experienced that. So I belong to the environmental science background. And the education here is not that practical, that I have got to learn about the climate change very later. And similar to that, the people from the mountain community, which is often excluded or even excluded from other areas and very hard to reach. That is, the scenario is very different from even here from the Kathmandu. So we have to actually, keeping all that aside, we also have to look to the solutions. The platforms like NYCA, which I'm a part of, is a leading platform here in Nepal, connecting different young people from all over the country, in the hills, mountains, and in the Tarai plains. So we have been working together to raise awareness and try to teach children and youth, also the youth, about the climate change issues and how we can actually be a part of those solutions. Also, we are also trying to work in the grassroots. We promote the grassroots initiatives, and also, as we believe in the grassroots actions, we are trying to work more with the local communities and local government as well. And this session is all about the innovation. So we also believe that innovation not only limits to the inventions or the generation of products, but also connecting with the policies. That's where we are trying to connect or bridge the local initiatives with the national and international policies. So in this way, we are trying to bring forward those mountain voices and also connect with the policies. Thank you.
A big round of applause for Diksha. She comes from the community, she works with the community, and she understands the kind of challenges that they are facing and developing solutions with them. I think that's remarkable. And thank you so much for all your work. And you are the real inspiration for all of us to really spend much more time at the grassroots level. So thank you again. It's time to move towards how. And Professor Pradhan, I'm going to come to you, and you are an IPCC author. For those who don't know, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the top global body that synthesizes the work from around the world and actually sets the tone and direction for what needs to happen. So being an IPCC author, contributing to the scientific understanding that underpins dialogues like the one that we are having here, you have to tell us about how, and how we can actively involve youth, the challenges that Diksha talked about in terms of engaging them in science and technology and innovation, which is so fundamentally critical for addressing the climate crisis, particularly in the mountainous region where access is a real issue. So, and how can we look at it from a long-term perspective? Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Harjit. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, Subha Sandhya. So in my view, yeah, so youth needs to kick to ensure long-term sustainability. What I mean by kick is like K is for knowledge, I is for innovation, I is for implementation, and C is for critical thinking. Yeah? So let me explain a bit more what I mean here. Yeah? First, let's talk about knowledge. Yeah? In terms of knowledge, youth can contribute to generate holistic knowledge, yeah? Not the fragmented one. Yeah? Holistic knowledge on sustainability. Yeah? What does sustainability means? Yeah? And here, we have to understand that sometimes when we talk about sustainability, we are thinking only in terms of environmental sustainability. Yeah? But here, my definition of sustainability is to building societal prosperity and foundation within the Earth system limit, within the planetary boundary, at the meantime ensuring planetary health. So we have to think about this sort of knowledge where youth can generate new knowledge on sustainability, not in fragments, but more a holistic knowledge in a systematic manner. That's the first point. And the second point is implementation and action is needed. And youth can contribute a lot in implementing sustainable solutions. And when we talk about sustainability, the current framework of sustainability is the global agreed framework of sustainability is the Sustainable Development Goals. So in 2015, global community, global governance agreed 17 Sustainable Development Goals consisting of 169 targets to be achieved by 2030. Unfortunately, no country is on track to meet the SDGs, all the SDGs. It doesn't matter whether it's a rich country or a poor country. So here I see a lot of things can be done by youth also to accelerate SDG progress. Yeah, and one of the thing here is also to understand when you talk about sustainability and multidimensional, multifaceted aspect of sustainability, there are synergies, there are trade-offs. So one example of synergy would be, like when you look at the data of the countries where we have a huge under 5 mortality rate, yeah, and open defecation, yeah, and we can see a good relation between like country which has a high rate of open defecation also has a high rate of under 5 mortality rate. In that context, if we generate a proper sanitation facilities, yeah, it will help also to reduce under 5 mortality rate. So there are a lot of synergies like this in SDGs. Yeah. However, there are also trade-offs. For example, if you look at the material consumption and then poverty head count, what we see is like poor country has a lower amount of material consumption. However, the rich country has a higher amount of material consumption. Yeah, And in terms of sustainability, what we need to do is like, we have to ensure the responsible level of material consumption. At the meantime, we have to also ensure elimination of poverty. What does that mean is the traditional paradigm of reducing poverty and increasing material consumption doesn't work when we talk about sustainability. So here we have to think about synergies, we have to think about trade-offs, and try to look at the solutions where we can leverage synergies. At the meantime, we can also tackle trade-off. At the meantime, SDGs are till 2030, yeah? So we have to also think about the post-2030 agenda. The third and the most important thing is critical thinking, yeah? Because whenever we are talking about science, technology, and innovation, we think that science and technology will solve everything, yeah? We are thinking about techno-fix, yeah? So that might not be the case. So I will also encourage youth also for critical thinking. One example, we heard a lot about artificial intelligence, yeah? And I have also interacted with some of our youth, and they are using artificial intelligence for different purposes, yeah? And we have to think about how can we use artificial intelligence knowing its potential and limits. Nah? So basically, in my perspective, there's three things, right? Knowledge, implementation, and critical thinking is required from the youth side, yeah, so that they can contribute not only for climate action and reducing, mitigating climate change, but also to ensure sustainable transformation, yeah, where we are trying, what we mean here is like to balance socio-economic and environmental aspect, all the three dimensions of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pradhan. I hope everybody listened to that kick that he was talking about, and I'm going to be going for a quiz in the next few minutes. So please remember, right? And I hope you're listening. And I totally agree with you, and especially the way you talked about the development and climate action. They are not at odds with each other. We have to talk about, and especially in developing country context, we also have an opportunity when development has not reached that point right at the beginning, how we can integrate climate action and SDGs. They're not at odds with each other, but must go hand in hand. And especially when you talk about empowering people, and something that I have been saying for a very long time, that we should not look at empowerment just as a destination. We need to give them some skills or knowledge. No, the way you empower people is extremely important. So your kick actually matters, because things are changing so fast that you cannot expect somebody sitting at the top in the boardroom or a company is going to develop solutions for you. You have to develop your own solutions, which means you need to have knowledge, you need to have the power of implementation, and that thinking to come up with your own solutions, because things are changing. Imagine we are living in a 1.6 degree warmer world. When we got the Paris Agreement, we were around 1 degree warmer. And every fraction of warming is bringing us devastating impacts and such uncertainty which we can't really deal with. So we should have those skills. So I totally agree with you. Before I go for the second round, I'm going to open the floor and would like to hear... Oh, sorry, I'm going to go to Dan. Sorry. I got too excited. Okay, so let's take a pause. Let's go to Dan to hear one more important work, and particularly going into the how part of it. So Dan, your work on MIT Lab, especially with the Himalaya Home Energy Consortium, directly addresses some of the critical needs that we have in the mountain communities, which does remain a central concern of Sagarmatha Sambaad. And I would request you to share why and how community-driven design in energy technology is so urgent, and how do you engage communities? So over to you.
All right, thank you, Harjeet, and namaste. It's nice to see everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I traveled a long way to come to this. I've been to Nepal many times before, but usually I'm not in a place like this, a room, a meeting like this. I spend a lot of time in the rural areas. I'm very comfortable breaking stones and cutting grass and working with matto. I'm a little bit less comfortable here, but but I'm happy to speak about some of the things that we're doing. So, yeah, I'm part of a group at MIT. We're a small group, an interdisciplinary group that focuses on the rural challenges around the world. And a big part of what we do is we follow MIT's motto, which is mens et manus. That's Latin. It means mind and hands. And I think in Nepali it's man rahat. Is that right? Yeah. which sounds good too. And so, you know, we have a lot of courses. Diksha, you mentioned about the theoretical knowledge, right? We learn a lot of that in school, right? But we have fewer opportunities to put that into practice. And so a big part of what I do is introduce students, introduce young people to these experiences where they can put those skills into practice, and a special type of experience that they may not get at MIT or even in the US, which is in places like Nepal, where the rural context is very different and the challenges are very different. So I'm very lucky. I get to visit Nepal frequently. We have a collaboration here with Kathmandu University and Dhulikhel Hospital. And we get to go with our students from KU and from MIT to the rural areas in Kavre, Nuwakot, Rasua, or a few places. And they get to spend some time living in those communities, doing the everyday tasks that mostly women are doing, but helping with those. And then working together with the community members to develop some solutions to the challenges they're facing. And we focus a lot on energy, although there's many other needs we've heard about today in agriculture, in economic activities, and transportation, connecting to other places. So what I really appreciate about working with these type of youth, these students, is these students are from, you know, the best institutes in their countries, right? They will go on to become leaders in business and government, research, academia. And so it's a really great opportunity for me and my collaborators at KU Dhulikhel Hospital to introduce these students to a different learning platform, I would say, in the rural context. And I've had a lot of students tell me that their time of their whole experience at MIT, at KU, the work that we did in the communities was the most impactful. They're going to take that forward for the rest of their lives. Maybe some of them will be at COPs, some of them will be in other, you know, big positions. And so I think they'll take those experiences forward. The other youth that I work with through my job are the youth in the communities. And I think in Nepal, it's 40% of the population is in this 16 to 40-year-old age bracket. And so I did a little research. Most of the places that I work, I look at the population age distribution. So it's a chart where you can see population of a country by age. And in a lot of developing countries, it follows a pyramid shape. We know this, right? So we have a lot of people in the younger groups. I think the mean age in Nepal is 24 years. So many people are entering the workforce. And I think about, you know, what are these people going to do, right? 70% of the population is still rural, or more than that, I think, in Nepal. What will they do for income and employment? And so what we really try to do through our work is engage those youth and introduce them to a transformation they may have not gotten in their education or in their life at home. And that's really using a design process, design cycle that a lot of us know about, and creativity to think about challenges in their daily life and then come up with solutions to those challenges, right? So I can speak more about some specific examples, but we think that community engagement really achieves, you know, in the long term, much better adoption, better health outcomes that we've measured, better outcomes on the environment. We've measured wood consumption in some communities where we've worked and found that some of the technologies we've developed have really decreased harvesting of firewood from forests. So yeah, these outcomes are generally better. The downside of, you know, working collaboratively with a community is it takes long, right? We have to travel far. It's at least one day to go to any place that we work, sometimes up to 3 days in Nepal. And so there's a lot of challenges there. It can be costly, right? We're sending teams from MIT, from KU to work with these communities. So there are a lot of challenges there too, but I think we're still focused on those long-term benefits. So I think I'll stop there. I have a few other points, but we'll pick those up later.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'm sure we'll come back to you once we have questions from the floor. And thank you for giving example of actually implementing the kick that Professor Pradhan talks about, how to really take that to the ground. So as you could see, I'm very excited to open the floor, and I really want to hear from you. And it's time for you to ask questions or share reflections. I already see a hand from a young lady. 2, 3, great. Wonderful. Can we start from there? Please introduce yourself, and if you want to address your question to a particular panelist, please do. No, start with the lady, please. Yeah, from her. She'll speak first.
Hello. Yeah. Namaste, everyone. My name is Tashi Lanzom, and yes, I'm a young person. I just want to point out that as I see this lot of empty seats here, it's a reminder that that young people's participation in this Sambaad has been very low. So I want to point this out because this is the first climate dialogue where I have seen so many empty spaces. Because as we all know, that young people are more interested in the climate sector and climate change than our older generation because of the fact that this crisis is intergenerational in nature. So let this be a kind of a reminder to whoever responsible to include more youths here. And yeah, so I just want to point that out. I'm so sorry, no questions.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Extremely useful. I'm sure organizers are in the room listening. Go ahead.
Hi, namaste. It's me, Naveen, a public health professional, currently working on public health issue. Dr. Quera is the keynote speaker, but I have a question for him, so I need an answer from him. Yesterday, Right Honorable Prime Minister launched the NDC report, and I just opened it and directly saw the adaptation priorities of the government. And there I saw that in the health, drinking water and sanitation, that only 500 health professionals will be trained by 2030. We are talking that climate change has a lot of direct impacts on the human health. In the intersectionality approach, health should not be left behind. Is this number is sufficient to involve young health professionals in these 5 years of duration? And later on, by 2035, it will be reached to 5,000. As we are talking, health should be considered in every aspect of climate. Are we making evidence-based priorities or adaptation priorities by government of Nepal? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll collect a few questions. Let's take, I think there was one more hand from there, and then, yeah, a couple of. We'll come to you.
Hello everyone. It's me, Sumit Shah. As a public health student and executive member of We for Change, I have questions to concerned panelists. I have 3 questions regarding these sessions as a youth lead. How did to suggest empowering youth from marginalized community to participate actively in scientific and technological field? And another question I have, what roles do you see for young public health professionals in designing and implementing early warning systems for climate sensitive disease? And last questions I have, what policy recommendations can youth advocate focus on to ensure that public health remains a priority in national climate strategy? Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I am Asna Pandey, grade 10 student from Darwar High School. I'm a 14-year-old, and I am here as a children. So I have few questions to Ms. Diksha Baral, and as well I have questions for Mr. Harjit Singh, if it's possible. So my question to Diksha Baral is that, as you said, in our country we don't have practical learning, or like we have moreover like a theoretical learning in our country. So what is the gap that is there which is stopping our country from that, and what NGOs or like INGOs or the government can do to maybe minimize it? Or it's not only about unlocking youth potential, but it's also about acknowledging them. Like we should acknowledge who are there for science, technology, or for climate, right? So what are the problems that you see as a young maybe like people, but like what are the things that you see should be done, or like we should start to do as from now so that we can make improvements for the future. And I have a question for Mr. Harjit Singh, by the way. So as fossil fuel is like a lot of people in our country are dependent on fossil fuel from like the day they start, like from the children's to older people, we are dependent on fossil fuel, and it's not possible to just shift to clean energy immediately, right? So in remote areas, it is not possible for clean energy, or it's not affordable yet, right? So how can we balance those both, and how can we go together while balancing the people who are facing fossil fuel issues as well? How can we go along with them, or like how can we make it affordable, or maybe how can we make them how can we access them to like clean energy? Like, do you have any suggestions? So yeah, that's much. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw one more hand here. Okay, we'll go to her.
Okay, namaste everyone. I am Srisa Pandey, co-founder of Biodrishti. We are a climate tech innovator, and my question is for Prajal sir. And what do you see the difference between the mindset of the students outside and here, if you have any experience here, and how to develop the mindset that go towards the innovating something and not being the employee of the other people? So what can be done in the present context, and what if our next Einstein or our Marie Curie are in the classroom lost and they haven't found their potential? So what can be done for the unlocking the innovative mindset? Thank you.
Excellent question. We can take two more and then I'll go to the panelists.
Hello.
Okay, you go ahead. Can we give mic to him, please?
So, hello, it's me, Ritesh Panthi. I am currently representing the Diplomat magazine to cover this event, Sagarmatha Sambaad. And my question is, Ms. Romchat, I am also pursuing my LLM in Human Rights and Gender Justice in Nepal. So, my question is, in Nepal, climate change disproportionately impact marginalized communities, including indigenous people, women, and children, threatening their fundamental rights to life, housing, health, development. Okay. How can the OSCHR support Nepal in integrating human rights principle into its climate adaptation strategies, ensuring that these vulnerable groups are actively involved in decision-making process and have equitable access to climate finance and loss and damage mechanisms? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the last question of this round.
Lorenzo Quintana, University of Groningen. I have a question for Ms. Diksha and Mr. Prajal, and it concerns the fact that we know that in the next round of the IPCC, also the mountain community will be involved, and also the indigenous knowledge will be involved. What will be, in your opinion, the best way to make sure that also the youth is heard in that round of informing the science of the IPCC in general, about what is best for bringing that knowledge forward? And Prajal, from the scientific perspective, and also your experience as an author of the IPCC, what could be the best way to integrate this knowledge into the scientific insights and work and report that you are drafting in that regard?
Did you introduce yourself?
Lorenzo Quintana, University of Groningen.
Thank you so much. And thank you for a very practical question. I think we can go to Dr. Koirala first to respond to the questions.
I think this was directed from him, right? I didn't exactly get which particular speciality of training you were talking about, but I can also take the second question from the public health perspective. We really do have a challenge of developing the projection of which type of health professional does Nepal need to take care of its population over the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. That's a challenge in itself, and we also realize that that's a changing number. It doesn't remain same. You got to keep doing back and forth. But I do agree for sure, and I was part of the working groups in a number of occasions on Medical Education Commission in Nepal and part of the writing of the act itself, that unfortunate that we could not come up with a number of slots that are required to deal with the public health issues, at least to keep one public health officer in each municipality of Nepal. I think hopefully this is in process, and the latest gestures are that what we call positions in the government system are being sanctioned. It has not yet been. I totally agree that that's extremely important. And the same thing applies to a number of other professions. So again, coming up with the target number, as well as coming up with the strategies to train those people through our university system and or utilizing external support is a big challenge. I do agree that we need to work a lot more on the healthcare system's need rather than what our medical schools and colleges really want to produce doctors. So I do agree with the issue, but it's an ever-increasing, ever difficult task to address because there are two systems working at the same time. Health system demands and the health education institutions that have little different priorities and interests. But that's a great question, and I do support your idea that we need more health professionals, public health professionals in every municipality.
Thank you so much. Diksha?
So, thank you, Asna, for the question. So I would like to address that first regarding the theoretical and practical education. During my travel to few municipalities, rural municipalities in Madhya province, I was there for formation of eco clubs and engaging with children. So during the conversation, I got to learn, and I also looked at the curriculum of Nepal, and actually I was pretty amazed that the curriculum itself covered like the things like Paris Agreement, but when I had a little chat with them, they were unable to distinguish between weather and climate itself. So, actually the curriculum of Nepal is not so localized or not based on the local context and how children could actually understand that. And also we also do not have that capacity of the teachers, or we are not investing that much on the capacity of teachers so that they could actually teach how the children will understand. So I see that as a major problem here in Nepal. And so to actually improve that or engage children and young people and help them learn practically, I think eco clubs are the best ways, because they could actually practically do their things and learn what they want to do. So these are the things for the first question, and I could not understand the second question. Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, that was for me.
Okay.
On fossil fuels. Rajal, would you like to respond to the question? And then Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I would like to respond to like a few of those questions. So like, yes, the climate change and health is an emerging issue, yeah, and there are a lot of ongoing research on that as well. Even there is also, and in IPCC, there was also member countries who are calling for climate change and health as a special report. So, but here, when we talk about health, I would suggest that we have to also think a bit more broader. Yeah, we have to think about one health approach. Yeah, which is about health, not only about human health, but it's also about health of our environment and also our animals. So we can discuss more about that. But now the public health need to be much more broader than, let's say, considering only human health. Second thing about the students. What students can see, yeah? For me, the students, mainly our bachelor and master students, these are the army of the research. Yeah? Many of the research are done by our bachelor and master students. And then, of course, PhDs. There are a lot of things are done in terms of bachelor thesis, in terms of internship, in terms of research projects. And the difference between Nepal and maybe in other country might be that maybe like students from Nepal need to take their bachelor project, their internship, and their project work more seriously. Yeah, we have cases. I have many PhD master students who have published their study based on their master thesis. Nah? And I can see that potential also here as well. Nah? And we do have master student who has published, which research has published in Nature journals. Nah? So master student can publish their work in Nature journal. Yeah, and if you work hard, yeah, if you do the right way of research, yeah, then definitely you can also do that. And I see this untapped potential here in terms of Nepal, yeah, and this is not only call for the youth here, but also the faculty member in the university, yeah. Please encourage your student to take the research seriously, yeah, and also support your student for publication. I have seen faculty members here from Nepal, yeah, mainly from Purvanchal campus, Tribhuvan University, who supported his students, yeah, and make publication out of that, yeah. Yeah, so that's the second point, yeah. Regarding IPCC and youth, nah, so first thing we have to understand is that what IPCC does is that IPCC doesn't do research, yeah. What IPCC do is IPCC let's say assess the status of current knowledge, which are published either in a scientific journal or in a great literature, yeah? And when there are documented knowledge, definitely IPCC authors during the assessment process can pick it up. And also, beside the authors, we all as a community can also take a part in IPCC, yeah? Every time, whenever the first author draft is ready, it is open for expert review, yeah? An expert can be anyone, yeah? You as a youth, as an indigenous person, can also be an expert, yeah? And then you can select the chapter or even a section in the chapter where you want to comment, and you can comment with your evidence saying that, okay, these are the proof like this, documented here, 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 give a link, yeah? And then IPCC author, during their revision process, need to take those comments seriously, need to address each and every comment. Nah? So if you want to voices up, yeah. So in terms of city report, like first other draft is coming soon, yeah. Look at those first order draft and make comment over there, yeah. And then there is one unasked question here in the forum, because I asked the beautiful lady in front, yeah, what is your question? And she was saying that she will ask her question first, yeah, but she didn't ask the question, so I asked her question to the audience, yeah, so make it vocal. Now it's you, don't look outside. Yeah, so her question was like, children hasn't contributed much to the climate change, but why they are suffering much, nah? And what they can do to mitigate climate change, yeah? And I would say it's not only kids, nah? It's all for us, nah? So it's easy to talk, but hard to act, nah? And one of the action we need to do is we need to transition more and more towards our sustainable lifestyle, yeah? Let's reflect on our lifestyle and see like how sustainable we are, yeah? And try to be more sustainable. I know that there are certain boundary conditions, there are certain environments where we are locked in, but within that environment, first sustainable lifestyle, but also encouraging policy environments so that this policy environment can promote more and more sustainable lifestyle. Yeah, so that will be a bit of answer to your question, which you haven't asked. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for playing also the audience role. Dan, over to you if you want to answer any of the questions.
Yeah, I don't think I got any questions, but I'll just briefly respond to Ms. Pandey about creating innovative mindsets in young people. One thing I've learned working in Nepal is there's often, I don't know if anyone agrees, this may be controversial, but there's a deference to seniors, to older people, to people who are of higher education, even people that are from the cities, right? So we often find like the rural people that we're working with initially, it's very hard to get their opinions, and I think they generally feel undervalued. We've talked a lot, like today and yesterday, about the indigenous knowledge, but you really have to encourage that and value it when you're working together with them. So I think breaking down that deference at MIT, the students have a lot of freedom, they have a lot of autonomy, right? The administration mostly stays out of the way. They say, you guys know what the best conditions for your learning will be, right? And I think that's unique, I know, and it's not always easy to do, but getting out of the way a bit and also valuing that indigenous knowledge. My two top collaborators recently. One is a gagri maker in Benepa. He was an amazing guy. I spent a week with him, with my students. He taught us how to make gagri, and then we developed a new technology, a water heater technology, based on gagri with him. And it was great. We were in a small shop. It was dusty and dirty, but really great learning experience. The other one is Savitri in Uttarakhand, in a small village. She's a woman leader there. And she taught us how to make, there it's miti kachula or mato kachulo. And she was an expert. You know, she knew exactly how much clay, cow dung, grass, different components that you need to add and where stones should be placed. And then we worked together with her to retrofit her miti kachula into to having a chimney to take out about 80% of the smoke, so it was more a healthier environment for her. So we really appreciated, valued her as an engineer, even though she had very little education.
That's amazing, Dan. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Question about human rights. And when I talk about human rights with climate change people, of course, many people feel like this is a scary issue or even feel like this is a really sensitive issue. But many people mention IPCC as well. So I don't know how many of you know that IPCC AR6 actually affirmed the right-based approach in the IPCC report. And the IPCC AR6 affirmed that the right-based approach actually reduce the trade-off or also increase the effective and also the sustainability of the climate actions. And here in Nepal, I met many friends who I met at the IPCC AR7 scoping meeting. I represent OSCHR at the IPCC AR7 scoping meeting. And my background is not physical science. My background is law, a social science. And we discussed and spent the week and identified the right-based approach or the social dimension that actually contribute to the effective climate change policy. We identify a number of barriers and also how to make the climate governance more effective. So that is the role of OSCHR. We help identify, we help offer the right-based approach, human rights, gender equality, just this concept. So it's not the conceptual, but human rights is the basis for the right to participation, rights of people who, everyone here can really engage and meaningfully participate with the climate action for the more sustainable and effective climate policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we started a bit late, so I'm going to take the liberty of actually extending it for 10 more minutes if everybody is fine and are going to stay with us. Is that okay? Are you going to be with us? Okay, excellent. And Archana, I have not skipped your question just in case you're thinking. I wanted to give a chance to my co-panelists first to talk about the fossil fuel, because what you asked is a brilliant question. And coming from a 14-year-old, I must say, it's just wonderful the way you think and the way you have the courage to ask questions. The fossil fuel, Dr. Koirala was talking about the air quality issue. We need to start connecting those issues. It's primarily fossil fuels, and which is at the heart of the political economy that we are dealing with. So your question is why we are not having renewable energy when we all have that kind of science and technology, and that's what we are talking about. Yet we are dependent on fossil fuels. Not that we don't have solutions. It's about the mindset. It's about the political will. It's about where we are investing our money. And it's important to recognize that while we are having such technological innovations and strides in renewable energy, it has not really shifted our dependence on fossil fuels. It remains about 80% over the last 3 decades, and I'm saying 3 decades because we got the convention in 1992. But there is something dangerously wrong with it. And let's also look at the kind of money that's going to the fossil fuel industry. The subsidies that have been counted by IMF is about $7 trillion that amount to $13 million per minute. Let me repeat that for you. $13 million per minute. That's the range of direct and indirect subsidies that are going to the fossil fuel industry. Yes, part of it are also going for social welfare and bringing down the cost of fossil fuels. But why are we stuck with fossil fuels? That's a fundamental question. When we have all the money that can go in renewable energy to actually make that technology free, and that's another question that we should be asking, because we are talking about science, technology, and innovation. Why are we not making climate technology as a public good? Why are we not making it free for everybody to actually use when we are already facing the climate crisis? And that's a question which really we should be answering, because that's connected with, as you asked, is with the political economy. And because the industry and corporations do not want that technology to go to people. So what we need is exactly what you're hearing, to work with young people to come up with those solutions, but also challenge those corporations and governments who are not meeting their obligations of providing finance. For Nepal, and we are talking about the budget and investment, lack of finance is a real issue, whether we talk about building capacity in education or health. So finance must flow. So we need to come up with solutions on ground, do a lot of innovations, but don't forget about holding the rich countries to account who are historically responsible for the crisis. When Nepal would have developed a lot more, is now facing many climate disasters, which is pushing us back 10, 20, 30 years. I think that's a fundamental problem which we should be asking. Okay, I can open the floor for 2 or 3 more questions before we wind up. Anybody? I see 1, 2, and Archana again. Okay, 3 questions and then we go to him first.
Everyone present here, good evening. My question is for the moderator, Mr. Harjeet Singh. My name is Prajwal Sharma. I'm doing my bachelor's in economics and law from Kathmandu University. So, as you were involved with fossil fuels, the treaty initiative, do you think there must be certain exception for marginalized, for underrepresented communities that do not have access to, modern technologies that minimize fossil fuel, right? So do you think there must be certain exception for these communities, like, okay, this is an amount of the emission that's allowed for these communities because of their economic challenges, because of their marginalized state? Do you think there must be provision like that? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sumana Kisi. I am a dentist by profession, and I also run a nonprofit oriented towards health. As someone who is working towards establishing telemedicine service in Mahankal Rural Municipality in Lalitpur, I am very grateful that Dr. Koirala touched the topic of telemedicine and proposed it as a solution for combating climate change effects. So in my journey of establishing telemedicine service in a rural municipality, I have come to acknowledge that there are a lot of challenges in establishing that. First being technological aspect, which is a hindrance in context of Nepal. Second, there is no manpower to actually operate the telemedicine services. And third, there is no provision of incentive for the health professionals to actually get on board despite their duty hours. So I want to ask Dr. Koirala, how exactly can we harness the power of youth potential and expertise of professionals like yours in establishing telemedicine services in rural areas?
Thank you so much. Can we give a mic to Archana again, please? And that's the last question.
So, good evening, everyone, once again. So, I'm not going to ask any question, but I would like to share experience with you all. So, I was the participant of Sagarmatha Sambaad this April, and through that, Sagarmatha Sambaad is actually a call for climate change, and it was a program held for children and youth, Balbalika ra Yuva Banera. And so, after a long day, after all those efforts, we made a declaration that day, and we even presented that declaration to the ministry. But it is an unfortunate moment for us, as we couldn't share our declaration or hope or whatever we created or whatever we got through that day. So I think as a participant of Bayu Sambaad, it is a really unfortunate moment, or like I really did expect it to present our thoughts or declaration, but we think that in tomorrow's declaration, in the main declaration, we will be acknowledged, and I hope that all of us will get to see what we created, because it was not only children's, because we were there representing our community, ethnicity, or the lens we see the climate change and the way we are affected by the climate change. So it was hard work. It was maybe it was just the effort as from the children and youth for the climate change. So I think we should be acknowledged. I think our declaration should be included in the main declaration of Sagarmatha Sambaad. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we start to respond to your question, first of all, again, thanks to your, and congratulations and kudos to your courage for saying that. Continue reaching out to the government at various levels. And I'll give you a mantra, which is what I practice, especially when you work with the government. Collaborate where you can, resist where you must. Right? So there are times when governments are overwhelmed with a lot of things and issues. We need to also understand they have a lack of capacity, lack of resources. So keep trying. And then there's a point where you realize they're not listening, that's when you resist. Right? Collaborate where you can, resist where you must, and especially as a young person, keep at it. Dr. Kerala, can I come to you to respond to the other question?
Sure. Thank you. I think it's a great question about the practicalities, difficulties, and challenges of telemedicine in the current context. As I mentioned briefly, we've been talking about it, trying to use that as a solution for far remote sites, and not only far remote sites, the academic exchanges between institutions within and outside is always a benefit. And I totally agree with you that the technological challenges, the user friendliness of that, and the ability of our clients, patients to be able to use that is one. But I totally agree with you, the complacency, if you like, on the side of the healthcare professionals at the demand side, as well as on the provider side, consultant sides, is, in my view, the biggest setback. So I think my take on it, not only from our own experience, but from other international experience, and I'm actually talking to one of my Japanese colleagues in managing diabetes among young children, so D to D versus D to P connections have a different value. So I start now working on direct patient to doctor conversations. That turns out to be more effective, reliable, consistent than when you try to do through other health professionals, because there is no real incentive now, because we tend to think that telemedicine comes for free and you are not really paid for it and it is not accountable for. So I think we need to work on these two models of connections. Who do you talk to? Secondly, whether or not that there is a way to really consider that as a formal advice and consultation. And by the way, Nepal Medical Council, because most of that is related to the doctors, has actually passed a guideline since COVID time, because that COVID brought in some good changes, including this one guideline on telemedicine, is considered as a formal consultation and legally permissible, legally acceptable, and also payable, by the way, if you do it right. And there are limitations and some definition as to how do you do it, how do you not do it. So I think that's the only comment that I want to make about it. One fast, maybe, you said closing remark, but I want to go back to Dan. What I would urge my colleagues, younger colleagues, and of course, anybody, is try to do is, we don't need knowledge today. We all have it here, right? What we need to do is what exactly Dan said. It's an implementation science. Try to find ways to implement whatever we know for the greater benefit of the people in the communities of far remote sites or in the cities for now. Urban poor is a big challenge today in Nepal as well as elsewhere. So I think what we need to do, and I think the theme today is how do we really innovate find newer, simpler ways to put in practice the thing that we know from bigger science. I think that would be my take today, and I'd like to share and try to find as many simpler ways of implementing the bigger science in the communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koirala. That's very valuable. I'm going to come to all our panelists to give just a 30-second closing remark. But before that, I said I'm going to go for a quiz. You need to explain KIC. Who's going to do that? K stands for? I and C. Excellent. So you're all awake. Thank you for that. Can we start with you, Diksha?
Okay, so first of all, since Asna brought up about the Bayu Sambaad, I'd certainly like to talk about that as well, because Bayu Sambaad, which we organized, was itself a part of Sagarmatha Sambaad as a pre-event, and it was co-designed with the Ministry of Forest and Environment. So I think we are where it is a step that we are actually trying to work together with the government and bringing up the solutions, and that focused about the solution mostly and engage more young people who could not join us in this main Sagarmatha Sambaad. So, but regarding the space and the opportunities to the youth, I think we still need to work on, and I also agree with her. So regarding on my closing remarks, I would like to share a short quote, I think, which you all have heard from Greta Thunberg. She says that act like your house is on fire because it is. And we also have seen that actually the climate impacts are here. That means the situation is getting really worse, and we need to take actions and not limit with only the words. And young people are already on the forefront and taking leads, because we believe that for us it's not just about reacting to the crisis. It's about protecting our communities and saving the future we still believe in. Thank you.
Yeah, so instead of final remark, let me answer two questions, and also giving some solution here. The first thing is about emission. So definitely that's why we call it net zero emission. It's not zero emission, it's net zero emission accounting for carbon sink. Even though and there might be some emission coming from different sector. If you look at the scenarios, there are scenarios where there are use of fossil energy for certain cases. I don't know by heart, but it's about net zero emission, and definitely the question is that in terms of emission budget, how to divide that cake, and how to account that, either account it in terms of population, or account it in terms of GDP, or account it in terms of historical legacies, historical contribution. And this is really a big discussion in international negotiation, which my other colleagues here are much more aware than myself. Regarding the youth declaration, so be brave. So just drop me an email if you want. So there are preprint. There are way to publish things online. And you can print this sort of thing online using preprint server, and make it like a youth declaration from Sagarmatha Sambaad, and make a preprint, get a DOI, if you don't know how to do that, ask Google, ask AI, if you don't find answer, write me an email. I will let you know how to publish that preprint. And then once you make a preprint, we do have a colleague here from Diplomacy something, the journalist here, talk with him or her, and then make it popular, Good? That would be a solution. And then we should not wait till our government to act. There are different options we can act from our side. So will that be a good option for you?
All right, just to echo Dr. Koirala, I think we all have the tools, the capacity to develop solutions, right? It may not be a big thing, it could be something small, but we can all contribute. It'll take a lot of small actions. So people say, how do I do it? How do I start? So it's pretty simple, and this is what we teach when we're working in communities too. 1, choose something that you feel strongly about, a problem, a challenge that you want to work on. 2, learn about it. Gather information that you need. I think Mita Ji yesterday said, go and talk to the people there that are facing that challenge. right? Go out and speak with them. Assemble a team and develop some ideas, brainstorm. What are some possible solutions? Think way outside the box, even crazy things. Those will stimulate further ideas. Choose one or two to take forward. Build it, prototype it, do it quickly. We do something called sketch modeling. We use basic materials like paper and cardboard, whatever's around, to make something that looks like what you want to develop. You can talk to people and say, is this something that you would use? Would you buy it? How much would you pay? Build the real solution, test it, evaluate, and get feedback. Try it in the real context if you can, and then repeat all of this again until you get it right.
Thank you. My last remark is stress this slogan, no climate justice without human rights. And when we talk about human rights, we talk about the meaningful participation of all stakeholders, the most marginalized people. We talk about access to information, access to remedies, and also accountability. I actually have many points to raise, but I want to use this last slot for the self-promotion, which is very, very relevant to what we discussed today. I talk about human rights-based approach, and on the World Environment Day on the 5th of June, my office UN Human Rights partners with the Oxford University and many co-host universities across the world. And we want to highlight the human rights-based approach and we target students and youth. And for this region, we partner with the Himalayan University Consortium, and we will have the panel on engaging community, science, and decision makers in human rights-based approach climate action. So please join. I hope you can join this event. The global plenary event is 24 hours that we will highlight many issues around the world on the 5th of June. Hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramsad, and all my co-panelists to share your remarks. And thank you, Prajal, for responding to that question, which I was keeping for the last. So now I don't have to add too much. So no, thank you for that. And I'll add it with my closing remark. I think one thing that we have to absolutely remember when we talk about climate, we as developing countries, and now many young people, particularly from developed countries, are also talking about climate justice and not climate action. So when we talk about justice, we refer to the historical responsibility, as Prajal also mentioned. So we are not asking all developing countries or communities to stop using fossil fuels now until we have offered them a solution. For us, it's a development imperative. For us, it's about energy access, energy security, energy sovereignty. But the direction of travel is absolutely clear. We can achieve a carbon neutral world. We can achieve 100% renewable in many of the sectors. Technology is with us right now. It's the political will. It's the money which is going to the bad things. You know, we are seeing money going to corporations. We are going to fossil fuel companies, to wars. That money has to be channeled to the right kind of solution. And that's why what we need is just transition, which is about equity and justice. And that's what is going to lead us to a place where we are building a just and resilient world where people are able to exercise their rights. So that's what we are talking about. And on that note, I would like to end and say that while we are talking about science, technology, innovation, don't forget justice. That has to be at the very center of whatever we are doing. And particularly those voices coming from the young people from developing countries is going to be absolutely fundamental. I'm not going to summarize because we had such amazing insights, and I'm sure you will take back home and implement those actions. It's not just about knowing what needs to be done. It's about now getting to the ground and actually doing stuff on ground, as you heard from many of our co-panelists. And this Sagarmatha Sambaad has been amazing in terms of bringing such wealth of knowledge and expertise and implementation examples for us to get inspired and actually get into a dialogue on how we create this new world which is safer for everybody. We still have many more conversations, so I would like to thank all of you for such active and engagement and participation, and also challenging us, and of course my amazing co-panelists for being a sport and sharing their insights and experience, and of course we thank the government of Nepal for creating this valuable opportunity and setting that direction to put a spotlight, particularly on the concerns of mountainous communities. So a really sincere thank from me to everybody engaged, and I wish you all the courage and power to really now implement things what we discussed. Thank you so much.
A very heartfelt thank you to all the speakers and the panelists of today's session. This session highlighted the transformative power of the youth and the synergy in driving climate solutions through climate technology, innovation, and justice, from emphasizing inclusive participation and right-based approaches to showcasing real-world collaborations and tools. The speakers also inspired a collective vision of empowering young people to lead a more resilient and sustainable future. And as we are at the end of today's session, at the very last session of today's session, we would like to present a token of appreciation for your commitment and time. For that, I'd like to invite Dr. Rajesh Prasad Mishra, Secretary of Ministry of Forest and Environment, to the stage. I'd like to request Dr. Rajendra Prasad Mishra to provide a token of love to Professor Dr. Bhagwan Koirala. Now I'd like to invite Ms. Diksha Baral to receive the token of appreciation. I again like to request Dr. Rajendra Prasad Mishra to provide a token of love to Mr. Dan Sweeney. I'd like to invite Mr. Prajwal Pradhan to receive a token of appreciation. And I'd also like to request Ms. Romchad Wachiraruta Na Kornkun to receive a token of appreciation. And at last, I'd like to request Mr. Harjit Singh to receive a token of appreciation. And I'll request everyone on the stage to please stand for the group photo, please. And thank you once again to all our panelists.